SnowTrax is sponsored by Ski-Doo. What matters is what's next. Yamaha, conquer snow. And by FXR Racing, full throttle addiction.
There's a lot of great things about living where I do in Ontario, and one of them is that Ontario is a hotbed for snowmobiling. Every year, you know, we do stories within Ontario, which is my backyard. We're gonna start in Haliburton and ride my home trails that I know like the back of my hand, and then travel all the way north to Pembroke and do it in a day. Whenever I do a trip in Ontario, I like to bring somebody along with me. Riding by yourself is never very much fun and not very safe. So I always find somebody different to bring with me on the trip. And you know, we just finished doing the North America's Top Snowmobiler campaign and met so many awesome people from all over North America, really, but some really great people from our area. So through the course of meeting all kinds of interesting and new people through the North America's Top Snowmobiler campaign, one person stood out as being a perfect choice to do a trip like this, and that was Kevin Hanlon, because I mean, he's such a turbo, excited, enthusiastic snowmobiler. It was a good choice because Kevin's a cool dude, and he brought two guys with him who are just perfectly suited to this trip, rode just like we did. You know, Scott and Glenn were both great guys. I'd never met them before, but once we got on the trail and we started riding, it was like, yeah, this is the kind of group that I can ride with day in, day out, and it all just went so well. We decided to base our trip out of the Pinestone Resort just outside of Haliburton. Pinestone Resort is probably one of the best snowmobile destination places because it's so accessible. You can literally ride the trail right into the parking lot. It's groomed right into the parking lot. The trip was going to leave from there and head, you know, towards Pembroke on some of my absolutely favorite trails. Where we're riding is the eastern region of the Ontario Highlands, and it's called that for a very good reason. The topography here is so up and down, there's tons of elevation changes, and the trails follow that, and you get a real sense of that as you ride.
Absolutely passionate about the sport. It's something that I think about year-round, not just when the snow falls, and it's something that really hypes me up for winter. It's funny, I don't think my wife really understood that until she started, you know, spending a little bit more time with me on the snowmobile, but it's a lifestyle for me.
If I'm going to take somebody to ride in my own area, I'm going to show them the best of what Haliburton has to offer. And so the first part of our trip, there was no other choice but to ride the hydro line from Haliburton to Whitney. And it goes right through Algonquin Park. It's the only motorized vehicle trail that goes through Algonquin Park. We were the first ones down this hydro line. It's a long ride, and there wasn't a single track, just groomer tracks. It was so mint. It's like opening a jar and a can of peanut butter and sticking the knife in. Your first one, you just stir it all up for everybody else. That was us. I can honestly say that first part of this trip from Haliburton to Whitney was probably one of the best rides I've had in the past 5 or 6 years.
When I got the call to come out and do this ride, it was the same feeling I got when Mark Lester called me to tell me that I was one of the contenders for North America's Top Snowmobiler. I was like, heck yeah, like why not? You know, I was bummed when I didn't win the contest that I wouldn't get out and ride with you guys, but I get to do it anyway, so it's great. And it turned out to be absolutely exceeded my expectations.
Coming up to Haliburton, where I've never been, I heard there's a lot more snow up here. The trails up here they're gorgeous.
When we left in the morning, the weather was really overcast. We left early, so it was you know, morning, it was dark, but it was overcast and it was snowing hard when we were riding the rail line to Whitney. It was actually beautiful because the snow was kind of heavy and it was sticking to the trees up in the branches. It was pulling the branches down over the trail, kind of looked like a tunnel while you were riding through. It was just an absolutely beautiful ride.
In terms of signage, it's actually something that I take a lot of notice of. I'm a treasurer of our club, but I'm actually a trail director as well. I have 2 roles, and when you put signs in, you really notice when somebody else does a good job of signage. And the signage up here is excellent. The trails are excellent, but that's really part of an excellent trail system is excellent signage.
Kind of when we got further east of Whitney, we were headed towards Barry's Bay and then towards our lunch stop. The weather completely changed and it became sort of clear. The snow stopped. You could see on the trail that it had snowed where we were riding because there was a layer of fresh snow on top of a perfectly groomed trail. But the weather was completely different. It was really, really nice. I mean, you're experiencing the 2 best parts of snowmobiling, snowing and sun. By the time we got to our lunch stop, we were ready to eat and have a little break, but we were still excited. We'd had a great morning. There was still a lot of riding to do this afternoon, though.
SnowTrax is sponsored by MBRP Performance Exhaust. Race inspired, trail proven.
After a great morning ride and a great lunch stop, it was time to finish our trip from Haliburton to Pembroke, and it was time to get back on the trail and put on some more miles. The second half of our day was actually the shortest half, so from Deacon to Pembroke wasn't really a super far ride, but the trails here are quite different than what they are in Haliburton. We rode a lot of rail beds in the afternoon, and these rail beds are wide, they're super fast, they're really well maintained. Everywhere we rode, we had great trails. I don't know if we just hit the jackpot on this trip or not, but everything we rode was mint.
Whenever I headed up to do this trip with Luke, I took my snowmobile with me. But I think he knew that I was really enthusiastic about the new Gen 4 Rev. So he surprised me. He actually brought one out, he unloaded it, and he handed me the keys to it, or the tether I should say, and he said, here you go. Let's take it and try it out and tell me what you think. When it comes to a snowmobile, I know what I want in a sled, I know how I want it to work, and I can't think of a single criticism yet from this sled about anything I don't like.
The trails after lunch were really great as well. The rail bed, the B rail bed coming up is a nice rail bed. It's not straight, so they've got some nice turns and you can really enjoy driving through there. There's beautiful scenery. And then the loops that come off of it are beautiful as well. You get up, drive through the trees, through the forest, and there's just so much to see. It's breathtaking.
The trails on this end of the story aren't familiar to me. I haven't ridden out here more than once or twice in my life, and I really like it. I gotta say, I like riding out here. It's a different experience than riding in Haliburton. The trails aren't quite as tight. Some of them are. Most of them are a little more wide open, which suits us well. So it was nice. It was nice to have a difference. And that's the thing about Ontario that's really cool is there's so many options when it comes to trails, and you'll never ride the same trail twice, but everywhere you go has its own little kind of personality, and to take a trip from one location to another and experience two so completely different personalities really makes for a unique experience that I just don't know you can get anywhere else. One of the things that I love most about snowmobiling is riding with people and making friends and riding with old friends and making new acquaintances. That's one of the best things about this sport is the camaraderie and the personalities, and this trip had loads of that as well. I mean, I met 3 new people that I never met before and made some new friends. The more I ride in Ontario, the more I'm impressed with how the interconnectivity of the trails and the infrastructure is all just working together so well and is so seamless. I haven't seen that in very many other places, and it makes this area the best area to ride in North America, I think.
Although you can't access downtown Pembroke, whenever you stay at the Holiday Inn or the Best Western, you have all of the amenities right there. There's a big stop across the street with lots of gas, lots of food, everything you really need. So essentially, you don't have to access the downtown section. And the trails are right there. You've got options. You can ride wherever you want from there.
In this section of Pembroke with the Holiday Inn, it was really accessible. The gas is right there. Hotel is very accommodating. Even if you had to trailer up here, there's lots of parking if you have your trailer and truck.
Another neat thing about Pembroke is that it's right on the Quebec border, essentially. It's right on the Ottawa River. So when you're in Pembroke, you're only a stone's throw from another province and a sort of a whole nother plethora of destinations that you can experience. They've even built a brand new bridge across the Ottawa River. It's not quite finished when we were here, so we didn't go ride on it because it wasn't open yet. But when it is, it's gonna open up really interesting multi-day trips where you could leave, let's say, from Haliburton, ride to Pembroke in a day, and then ride up into Quebec for a couple days, back to Pembroke and back to Haliburton. You could put on a week's worth of riding and not hit the same trail twice. That might be the next story we have to do.
SnowTrax is sponsored by snowmobileinquebec.com. Experience a ride you'll never forget. Trail Tech is sponsored by Princess Auto, a unique world of equipment, tools, and more.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of carving a good corner or throttling through a field of fresh, untouched powder. It's freeing, it's spiritual, and it's epic. But there comes a day when your stock lug track may not take you to this higher plane of existence, and instead leave you looking for a rope and a pole. But the answer isn't always a trade. Possibly your sled is close to new, but your riding destination and riding style may have changed, or you're really happy with your iron, but your track just isn't cutting it. And for those times, utilizing a product that's not just built to a high level of quality, but also a very reasonable budget can be the answer without breaking the bank. Composite tracks are roughly 20 to 30% less expensive than the competition and offer a wide variety of lengths, pitch layout, and design. Now, just because this company claims top spot for bottom dollar pricing doesn't mean you're buying yesterday's technology. Take for example this T32 pre-studded 1.25-inch track. While it's only available in the US right now, there's very few manufacturers who actually make pre-studded tracks, and Composit is one of them. Composit has been around since 1994, however you may not have heard much about them until the late 2000s, as they were strictly a Russian track manufacturer. Since their focus on North America and truly the world in 2008, they've continued to bring high-quality, low-priced sled tracks to market with a performance focus, claiming they make tracks for riders by riders. Now for today, I'd love to install this brand new T32 on our 137, but the truth is this ZR, I want to make more capable off-trail. And I'm going to do that through the use of a composite T38 Talon track. With an asymmetrical lug layout, this 1.5-inch deep track gives impressive traction in deep snow situations while still staying trailable. Extra reinforcement to the outer lugs gives a stronger shoulder and reduces track tears, while also increasing outer bite for both acceleration and braking. I really enjoy this ZR137, but I also like to get off trail, and the truth is the 1.25 track that comes stock, not really the right fit for that. But changing this track, seeing as it's a 6000, is really not that hard, so I'm going to show you how. While some 4-stroke track changes can be a little more intense due to the nature of reverse gearing, a 2-stroke is pretty straightforward. If you're not comfortable, ask your composite dealer to do the work for you, and you'll still probably walk away with a new track and install for less than the competition. Reinstall is as simple as reversing the process, and always, always, always remember to fill the chain case back up with oil, because that's one lesson you do not want to learn the hard way. So now with the track switched up, the only thing left to do is to take this thing out with the new Talon T38 installed and see exactly what we've gained in off-trail capabilities. So that's precisely what we're going to do. Moving from a 1.25-inch track to the Talon 1.5 is not a huge departure on the trail. While you can notice a slight amount of increased push in the corners, it's nothing to worry about, and at the same time you also pick up on the fact that in granular or tore-up snow, it really gets some serious traction. In the same conditions, braking is increased thanks to the extra depth of lug, and the reinforced side lugs stay rigid, grabbing as much of the trail as they possibly can. I notice a great improvement on forward motion when exiting a corner. In the current snow conditions, this track really hooks up and feels like it's a cat on a screen door, and clawing for altitude at that. Skis are up, track spin is minimal, and I am a happy camper. Now there are drawbacks to a deeper lug. Icy acceleration as well as braking are going to be reduced, but if you're coming from a 125 that wasn't studded, there's really not going to be any difference. So I see there being very few drawbacks and many benefits. On the top of my list of benefits has to be the off-trail hookup. Sure, it's great on the trails, but you don't increase lug depth for better on-trail performance. The Talon 38 was built to help you propel forwards when the powder gets deep, and that's precisely what it does. You might be wondering if a 0.25-inch increase can really make that much of a difference. And the simple answer is yes. While you won't be gearing up and heading for the mountains, the flatland free rideability of this track is significant. And while it's a seriously better value than the competition, I see no quality drawbacks, and for certain, nothing in the performance category to make me question the Composite brand. If it were my money, Composite would be a top choice, both for budget-busting price tag and the exceptional performance it delivers.
Closed captioning of SnowTrax is sponsored by Triton Trailers, built for adventure.
What if you want power and comfort? What if you want to go fast, but you also want to be warm and take all your stuff with you? What if it's not as much about showing off as it is about getting places? What if you want your cake and you want to eat it too? No problem. There's a sled for that. Yamaha's Sidewinder comes in a rainbow of flavors, including the more reserved yet every bit as powerful STX DX 137. Same motor as the, let's call them harder core versions, but with a few more creature comforts for the more mature and distinguished motorhead. I'm not going to say the Sidewinder STX DX concept is anything special. Putting big power under the hood of a more reserved-looking vehicle is nothing new. But what is new, and what is special, is just how much power they managed to cram under that hood. The heart of any Yamaha Sidewinder is that sweet 998cc 3-cylinder turbocharged power plant. The secret to its overall goodness and real-world usability is how the turbo is tuned to deliver boost at incredibly low RPM, thus nearly eliminating any sensation of turbo lag and making the sled feel every bit as responsive as a non-turbo 4-stroke. Fast? Yeah, but usable. And that's what's most important about the power of any vehicle. Big horsepower will get you to the end of the lake first, but usable power is what gets you from corner to corner in the woods, and the Sidewinder has loads of both. This is what Yamaha does. If they know anything at all, it's certainly how to build a stellar motor. Love or hate sleds like the Vector Apex and Nitro, you can't deny they had fantastic power plants under their hoods. A few interesting bits of technology Yamaha has incorporated into the power plant of the Sidewinder that make it so real-world usable are, for starters, an air bypass valve, which, unlike a blow-off valve that simply vents pressure to the atmosphere, the bypass valve reroutes pressurized air back to the intake side of the turbo when the throttle is cut, which helps maintain impeller speed so boost is ready for the next blow of the throttle. This dramatically reduces turbo lag. The turbo is also liquid-cooled. Coolant from the engine is circulated through the turbo body to help keep its temperatures down during normal operation. On top of that, there's a very unique convection-style coolant circulation system that cools the turbo down to proper levels after the vehicle has been shut off. A boosted engine that's designed to output around 200 horsepower from just under 1,000 cc's and be run at full throttle for long periods of time needs to be tough. And this one is, thanks to a forged crank, pistons and camshafts, and hardened steel connecting rods. Riding a Sidewinder is a lot like being on a jet airplane. When you're just cruising around slowly, it's pretty tame. It's actually sort of unimpressive. But for anyone who's ever flown before, the sensation of squeezing the flipper on this thing is just like when a pilot throttles up on the runway before takeoff. Power builds smoothly, and the sled pulls super hard through a mid-range that really just doesn't seem to end. It's like the sled continues to accelerate as long as you're willing to hold that throttle open. It's a good feeling, and if it doesn't bring a smile to your face, you're likely already dead. The rest of the STX DX package is aimed at keeping you warm and comfortable and allowing you to take all of your stuff with you. A nice tall windshield keeps you warm but also looks good. The saddlebags are listed as being semi-hard. Basically, it means they have a hard outer shell, but they do look good and they give you lots of room to carry your stuff. A heated seat is awesome for when things get maximum chilly. So it's got a great motor and a good list of features. What doesn't it do well? Unfortunately, two important things about the Sidewinder STX DX are in need of some attention. First, the ride. This is a performance touring sled, but it comes with a set of non-adjustable shocks that are set too stiff. If this was a base model or a budget sled, I'd be less likely to complain about this. But the Sidewinder DX is a high-performance snowmobile aimed at long-distance touring. It should come with an adjustable set of shocks like the SnowTrax TV favorite Fox QS3s found on other Sidewinder models. There's nothing wrong with non-adjustable shocks on sleds whose price doesn't justify high-end components. But the Sidewinder STX DX is not a cheap sled. It should come with a high-end shock package. The second area that needs attention is an important one, but it also has a super easy fix. We've said it many times that Yamaha's tuner ski, while great on the Apex and Vector models, doesn't work very well on the Viper, and that truth carries over to the Sidewinder as well. There's no problem when the trail is flat and the corners are long sweepers. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that in these conditions, handling is pretty good. But the second the corners get tighter, the sled starts to push. All positive steering feel disappears. Why do we think this is due specifically to the tuner ski, you might ask? Easy. Comparable Arctic Cat models handle great, and the only difference in terms of handling is the skis, which highlights the simple solution to this problem. Get yourself a set of Arctic Cat skis for your Sidewinder, and your handling problems disappear. The bottom line with the Sidewinder STX DX137 like we have here is pretty straightforward. Under all the comfort features and amenities, this is an extremely high-performance sled. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's not well suited to guys who spend all their time in the tight twisties. But if you're into long-distance touring, lake running, or putting on big miles in places like Northern Ontario or Quebec, you're the type of rider who can and will make full use of all the power and features Yamaha's Sidewinder STX DX has to offer.
SnowTrax has been sponsored by Polaris, see endless possibilities. Arctic Cat, share our passion. And by Northwest Ontario. What are you doing this weekend?
If you've enjoyed this video and would like to see more content from SnowTrax TV, click the like button and subscribe to the SnowTrax TV YouTube channel.